Going to school, getting a job, working hard, saving money, paying off debt, and making long-term stock market investments are the most out-of-date ideas. Look, with trillions of dollars being printed, why would you want to save money? The difference between the 1% and 99% is enormous. You must take a step back and consider the wider picture since it's not just about the money. What do you do then? There is a poor person inside each and every one of us, including me. There is also the middle class, and they seek stability and security in their employment, and a wealthy individual. All of these are also within us, with the exception that it's not taught. It is you are instructed to attend school, find employment, and earn money, not taught how to amass wealth. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my wealthy father refused to pay me. He claimed that receiving a paycheck was one of the worst things you could ever experience. According to him, the moment you accept a paycheck, you become an employee. My wealthy dad never gave me money. My poor father, who works for the government, was driven insane by it. Rich Dad wasn't complaining about his paycheck. Rather, he claimed he didn't want to be a slave for money. He said, "You need to pay people. You got to pay people." As an entrepreneur, I could just try another company if Rich Dad failed. I don't require salary. I don't require someone to look after me. I'm not by my government. I'll leave for another country because they need business people there. So the entrepreneur is mostly the mindset, skill sets, and unique set of rules, not so much the business itself. What would you tell someone who has never been an entrepreneur but is considering taking the risk to become one if you could only give them one piece of advice? I suppose I'd just tell them what happened to me. My last paycheck, which I still vividly recall, was given to me by my boss as a bonus check while I was working for Xerox in Puerto Rico. That was one of the happiest and worst days of my life at the same time. I didn't receive a paycheck, yes, yet my wealthy father urged me to do it. He claims that when you don't have this income, you become more intelligent and hungry, and it tests your moral character to see if you'll turn into a thief. Will you start being unreliable? Are you going to steal and lie? Or are you going to develop into a better person? Being an entrepreneur allows you to really discover who you are when you don't have anything. So that's really its main benefit. As a result, you must always consider the bigger picture. The question, well, what's going to happen to me, is one that far too many people focus on. As you consider the big picture, you also realize that even awful things often lead to positive outcomes. Yet you must be ready for whatever is to come. You're going to lose money if you believe the next 20 years will be like the last 20. You understand, when you and I visit the grocery store, we each buy a carton of milk. We always look at the expiration date. But the majority of people do not examine their brains for signs of expiration. I continue to accumulate debt rather than pay it off. I recently refinanced $300 million in debt. I reduced my interest from 5% to 2.5%. I had a huge profit. Because my cost of money has decreased, I receive more money each month. Hence, while some financial professionals advise getting out of debt, I advise learning how to use debt. See, the first thing my wealthy father told me after I returned from serving in Vietnam in January 1973 was, go to school to learn how to invest in real estate. But what he really meant was, learn how to use debt and taxes to make the rich richer. The poor and middle class go poorer because of debt and taxation. My doctor just shouted at me saying, "Hey, guess what? I finally made $1 million. And I responded, yes, noting that it was only 3 weeks ago. I asked, yes, how much do you pay in taxes? He replied, $750,000 in taxes. Meaning his net income was roughly $400,000. That's not bad, but I keep all of the money I earn when I make $1 million. And the reason is that I don't survive by working for pay. Check your taxes if you have a job. So the first lesson in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that the wealthy do not work for money. Instead, as entrepreneurs, we start new businesses. We purchase property. I don't make any stock market investments. So the explanation is that I have greater control over my income, how much I make, and how much I pay in taxes as an entrepreneur. Also, I pay no taxes because I'm both an entrepreneur and a real estate investor. Since I have a 4-to-1 step up, once I make, say $1 million as an entrepreneur, I instantly invest it in real estate. So after investing $1 million in real estate, the bank gives me $4 million. I adore banks because of this. Meanwhile, the banks are taking advantage of everyone else, which is bad, but beneficial to me. And when you print, both savers and people who work for a living lose money. Debtors profit when they print. You see, debt and taxes increase the wealth of the wealthy while increasing the poverty of the poor and middle class. We produce outdated outcomes when we have outdated concepts. Consequently, what's happening for the majority of people is the concept of going to school, finding employment, toiling away, accumulating money, paying off debt, purchasing a home because it's an asset, and making long-term investment. It's out of date. What would happen if we abolish education altogether? Would a complete lack of an educational system be preferable? No, I'm suggesting that education used to be more significant but is now simply out of date. You may be aware of Moore's Law, which, in accordance with Moore's Law, information doubles every 18 months. In other words, in 18 months, everything is outdated. Therefore, this is a recent occurrence. Because of this, by the time you graduate from college, you are already outdated. To encourage you to save money, banks today charge interest. In other words, because they have printed too much money, the banks don't want your money. And for this reason, there are bubbles in stocks, real estate, and other areas as well. Individuals are discarding their money. Since I stated in this article, savers are losers and cash is garbage. People who say, "Oh, I want a high-paying job," are actually clinging to an outdated notion. Get out of debt. Keeping debt is a bad decision. You ought to become debt-savvy. How to get rich via debt. And they won't ever instruct you on taxes. Because inflation and taxes occur when money is printed, the 1% is way up here while the 99% are moving in this direction. That is destroying them. You know, that's not what the real entrepreneurs are doing. Of the 28 million small business owners in America, 24 million are one-person operations, which are referred to as non-employee entrepreneurs. So because, and that's what happens, is when people don't really think about what they're doing when they start a business and make a lot of money, because that's what we talked about. Nobody informs the self-employed that they pay the highest taxes of all. There's no such thing as a terrible economy, despite the fact that it is also known as the entrepreneurial spirit. You and I both have an external economy, as you are aware. Nevertheless, we also have an internal economy, and we have the willpower to change it. A middle-class individual wants a decent house, a reliable source of income, a job, and a car because their economy is middle class. Therefore, it's a catastrophe when you take their employment away from them. An entrepreneur doesn't need a job, thus it's not a huge deal. The average person will fall and say, "Oh, I'm going to take some Prozac." Whereas the real entrepreneur has an internal focus and says, "Oh, this is good because I'm going to go up higher." A true entrepreneur, however, is able to get back up and move higher regardless of how far they fall. In the same way that, individuals who are frightened of losing their jobs typically do lose them. You get what I mean, right? Well, since everything passes through you, the first responsibility of an entrepreneur is to maintain control within, not without. You become an employee the moment you accept the payment. You must be more resilient than that. It's all about internal power.